World of Security YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about double DOM clobbering, and let's continue and see what topics we covered. And we're going to talk about some introductions, and we're going to talk about what we're gonna do after that, what is DOM clobbering and why sanitization isn't enough. And at last we talk about the double DOM clobbering, the very advanced topic, the very advanced techniques of DOM clobbering. And after we collaborate with some topics, we're going to deep dive into the challenge. Okay, assume that you filtered the script tags, you blocked on-load and on-error event handlers, you even filtered out iframes, you filtered any dangerous tags. You think your application is secure? Think again. Today, we aren't just bypassing a filter, we are rewriting the browser's global variables using nothing but HTML attributes. Breaking down DOM clobbering, an advanced technique of double DOM clobbering to turn a harmless config check into critical access vulnerability. Let's see what we're gonna do. In here, we're going to define DOM clobbering and why browser actually allow this behavior. We analyze the advanced access challenge that we provide, and we're going to build a double DOM clobbering payload step to step to bypass sanitizer. Okay, let's see what is DOM clobbering. First, what is DOM clobbering is very easy to understand, because DOM clobbering is a legacy browser behavior where HTML element with an ID or name attribute automatically become global variables on the window object. I show you something to understand it better. Okay, assume that we have this div id equal my element and div. Okay, as you can see in here, we have a div tag that have id with my element name. Okay, and if we add this to our web application HTML source code, when we type window.myElement, browser return this div for us. I'm going to save it, and what's a window.myElement? As you can see, this return to us. Okay, in here, and again continue. So imagine a developer writes code like let's show this to you either. Okay, so imagine a developer comes and writes a code like this. If window dot is safe as and something right in here. Okay, we have this if and, but if the developer haven't defined var is safe, an attacker can inject a href or anything tag and call that ID, and suddenly like this, look, ID equal is safe, and that's it. Like, okay, and this injected code a tag going to evaluate this and evaluate this if condition, and this is what called clobbered. This is what called DOM clobbered. As you can see, the whole concept is this. And let's get back in here. Okay, the next bullet we're going to talk about it is why sanitization isn't enough. Most sanitizers focus on execution, removing a script or even handler like onClick, but onClick, onload, or non-risky tags. Okay, we're clear with that. But DOM Clobbering doesn't use those. It uses standard HTML attributes like ID, name, and href. Okay? And if your application logic relies on checking global variables like configuration objects, and you let users inject HTML with IDs, you are vulnerable even if you strip every single tag in existence. Okay? Let's go into the next bullet. What is double DOM clobbering? We know for now the single clobber, the formal DOM clobbering. Okay, let's formalize what just happened in this technique, in this advanced technique. Double DOM clobbering is required when you need to traverse properties. If the vulnerable code was just if.global config, let's show you and have a better understanding of that. I told you if dot window dot global config and a single ID would work. If this DOM clobbering will work, but because code, we're going to see that completely, but in here, because code have this one and .src source, we needed to force the browser to build a collection. Okay, to clobber x point y, we usually need the first element. First element, this is the element, and ID equal x. Okay, and the second element id equal x and name equal y. This is what called double DOM clobbering. This technique is essential when attacking config object or libraries that look for setting global variables. Okay, we talk about this and let's deep dive into the challenge. Sooner than I accepted. Okay, this is the challenge and this is the code of the challenge. Okay, let's minimize this and have a huntery, as you can tell, that perspective. When we see this single page as an attacker, as a hunter, we're going to doing a very little narrow recon on it, just like this. As you can see, when we're going to source of the page, we can see this URL search params window location search params.get message. Okay, we have a URL parameter that reflects into the page. Why? Because in here, as you can see, user input, and the user input going to the here and sanitize the input if it contains scripts on errors, unload an iframe, image, svg, body or anything. It's going to clear and that's it. And then put input with inner HTML, get element by ID and comment. Let's check this. We add message and write test. As you can see, the test is injected in here. So as we know, and with this dangerous sync, let's get back in here. This is a dangerous sync, okay? And this is our entry point. So we have this filter. Look at this. This is just a simple, just as example. We know that in real web applications, the block list is larger than this one, okay? And sanitizer function, as you can see, block a script, unload iframe, image, svg, body, and anything, okay? And it replace this with nope, okay? And this leads to kill XSS injection, okay? So let's getting down and see window.unload. What this function gonna work? This is exactly where we trigger our payload for clobbering. Let's check. Window.globalconfig and window.globalconfig.src. If we just have this, we remove this port and we have just this port. This is what we call DOM clobbering. And because of the second and condition, we should use double DOM clobbering. Okay, we have global config, but you can the rest of the code. Is there any global config describe? Is there any var global config equals something? Nope. This is where the misconfiguration appears. Okay, the goal is to inject the HTML code that define this global config. Okay, and after that make sure that window.global config has a properly named src for the second one, and we should point to this src as our malicious payload. So let's try something. Okay, we inject our payload like a id equal global config and href equal javascript alert origin and test, close the tag. Let's have this very first payload in here, payload. Okay, let's check this one. This is not gonna work. Why? Because that is okay. We evaluate this global config. Okay, and let's go to the console and again let's see what exactly happened in here and what make sure us to this global config is created, is defined with this global config. Okay, as you can see in here, this global config is defined. What we can do in here, we're going to use the method x.y in here. How this happen? We create first a tag that id is global config plus another a tag with id global config, and we create a collection. Okay, and we're going to add name equals source to any of those, and collection is make sure return a specific element of them. And let's check and see what happened. Before that, we can even, instead of href javascript blah blah, we can use this one, data txt javascript alert. I just wanted to see what exactly happened in here. ID, is there anything need to be I just wanted to be clear. Okay. What happened if we put this in here and test and nothing happened? Okay. And this is exactly what we need, because in here, let's get back in here, and I call this payload 1. Let's get straight to payload 2. Okay. In the payload 2, we use, this is called DOM Clobbering double DOM Clobbering. Okay. In this payload, we're going to add first payload like this one, and close the tag a id global config and close a tag. After that, call this and define this tag with the same global config name, and then we're going to give a name to it like source. Sorry for not double quotation. Anyway, okay. And in href, always, I'm going to inject my payload. Let's use the payload in here that we injected. Data, JavaScript, test. Okay. Let's put in here first and then see what happened exactly. Okay. Why we don't use a script and this one? Okay, it's weird. Text, JavaScript, alert. Okay, sorry for the delay. I just wanted to make sure the payload is correct. Okay, we alert, and as you can see in here, this is the exact payload that we used. A id global config, and again another a tag id global config, and the name is source. Because of this, how can I show you that? Because of this, and we can see the logs and loading from this, and S is document created element script, and window dot source this one, and this is the just what happened in here. Okay, let's get back in here. As you can see, we completely deep dive into the challenge. We even stuck in the challenge, and I hope you enjoyed this video. The last thing I wanted to tell you is DOM Clobbering prove safe HTML isn't always safe logic, as attackers will look for the assumption developers make about the environment. If you find this breakdown helpful, check out the description for the challenge file so you can try it locally and hit the subscribe for more advanced bug bounty techniques and like the video.